Hi, everyone. I'm Anita Sharma. Welcome to Headlines on A News. The future of a ceasefire deal reached between Israel and Hamas is threatened by developments concerning the body of a hostage returned to Israel. Hamas says it will investigate Israel's claims that the body is not that of Shiri Babas, who, along with her two sons, was kidnapped during the Hamas-led attacks back on October 7th, 2023. The young boys' bodies were identified by Israel, but the country warns of dire consequences for Hamas if the militant group does not hand over the body of the mother. Joining me to discuss this is retired Brigadier General Yossi Kuperwasser, head of the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, and Nizar Nizo Dahan, a human rights activist and member of the Stand Up for Palestine organization. He's based in Swansea, United Kingdom. Brigadier General, I'd like to begin with you. What is at stake here, sir, given this tragic situation?
Well, what's at stake is the fact that we cannot rely on Hamas even to fulfill their commitments according to the agreement. They said they are sending the body of Shiri Bibas, and instead we found a body that is unidentified. It's not Shiri Bibas. That's one thing that we can say. And that's something that causes everybody in Israel to feel very frustrated and committed to get rid of Hamas in Gaza, because this thing cannot go on like that. At the same time, we are committed to continuing fulfilling the agreement for the release of the rest of the hostages. And six live hostages are supposed to be released tomorrow morning. So we are not breaking the agreement because we want to see them released.
I want to talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. First, Nizo, I would like to get your reaction, sir, to this latest unfortunate development before we get into the Saturday situation. What's coming ahead?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me again on the show. I mean, look, the ceasefire is a very fragile situation at the minute, and it's very interesting to see the retired brigadier talking about fulfilling the agreement of the ceasefire, which since the 19th of January, Israel has not stuck to the agreement. It has not allowed the correct amount of aid in. It has not allowed the mobile housing unit. Over 120 people in Gaza since the agreement started, and has also invaded Jenin and Tul Karam and other parts of the West Bank, slaughtering innocent people and bombing innocent people's homes and the infrastructure. So I don't understand what he means by the ceasefire agreement, because an agreement is something that should be upheld and adhered to by both sides, and see what the mix-up is. But I mean, when you look at the difference between the deceased Palestinian bodies that were released and the Israeli bodies that were released, one was done in a dignified manner in coffins, and the other one was dead bodies thrown out of the back of a truck into Gaza and dumped there. So I mean, you know, it's very concerning to see that an expectation of humanity and dignity is a must from one side, but then from the Israeli side, there is no problem in dehumanization and continuing the dehumanization of Palestinian people.
It's clearly a heated and sensitive issue. Brigadier General, your reaction, sir?
Well, everything was fine. We had a ceasefire before October 7th. This was the beginning of everything that happened following that terror attack. And the terror attack that cost the life of so many on both sides. But first of all, cost the life of so many on the Israeli side. That's a pity that Hamas shouldn't have done it in the beginning, right from the beginning. And what is so worrying today is the fact that we learned that the two children, the toddler and the 10-month-old baby, were killed by Hamas people in cold blood back in November 2023. That is a terrible situation. And to complain, as my colleague complains here, is ridiculous. Because obviously everything started with this terrible terror attack. Now we have to find a way to solve the problem. And the only way to solve it is really that's the lesson learned from what happened today, is that the only way to solve it eventually would be by convincing Hamas to leave Gaza, to leave the control of Gaza, and that's the only way that's going to work.
Let's talk more about that. Brigadier General, you touched on the fact that the first phase of the ceasefire deal, which started January 19th, well, that ends next week. Both sides say that they will go ahead with Saturday's exchange. As you mentioned, 6 living Israeli hostages being traded for dozens of Palestinian prisoners being held in Israeli prisons. Nizo, tomorrow looks like it's going to go ahead. However, Israel seems pretty, I don't want to use the word stuck, but pretty firm, let's say, in that if the body of Ms. Bibas is not returned, there will be dire consequences. Your reaction to that, what do you see coming down the pipe if this doesn't go the way Israel has requested or demanded?
I mean, it's pretty clear with the U.S. Gaza takeover and the plans that are in place that this is not about the hostages. And it's been made very clear from the beginning that a big number of the Israeli hostages that have been killed by Israeli artillery and Israeli bombing. Some even quoting the Hannibal Directive as a cause or a reason for people to be killed. Hopefully tomorrow will go ahead, and hopefully the Palestinian hostages as well will be released. The number of children, the Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya, who was taken from his duty saving lives in the Kamal Adwan hospital and accused of being an extremist and a terrorist and radical, when everybody knows that is not the case. He is a colleague of many doctors from around the world who have worked side by side with him, seeing the work that he's been doing, saving children under dire circumstances. The media like to portray this as Israelis being the victim, and as the colleague just said now, it started on the 7th of October, ignoring the fact that this is a 76-year-old apartheid regime which has been hell-bent on ethnically cleansing Palestinians from not just Gaza, but also the West Bank. And the only way that this problem is going to stop, and the solution that the colleague spoke about, is to end the illegal occupation, is a right to return for the Palestinians who've been evicted from their homes and not allowed to go back to their native land.
Brigadier General, as Nizo mentioned, it is a decades-long conflict, at times very horrific, very tragic. How long do you think Hamas will have to resolve this issue with respect to Bibas's body?
Well, the issue of the Bibas body should be solved within a couple of days, very soon. But looking back at the long-lasting conflict, I think one has to understand, and Nizar said it without saying it explicitly, but it was clearly understood. What he means is that Israel should not exist. That's clearly what he wants to see happening. This is not going to happen. And as long as the Palestinians stick to their narrative that is all about struggling against Israel until its demise, as Nizar said, then we are not going to see a solution. And the progress towards a solution will start by removing Hamas from power in Gaza. And I hope that we shall be able to find a way to de-radicalize the Palestinians living in Gaza so that they will be ready to live side by side with Israel, which is not the case. They attacked Israel of 48, not Israel of 67. It's not the occupation. They attacked areas that are not part of the conquest areas Israel took in 67. These are areas Israel proper since 48. So I don't understand the logic of what Nizar is saying in this respect.
Nizo, based on Brigadier General's comments, do you think Israel should exist?
That's a bit of a baseless question, because Israel does exist. And we shouldn't be debating whether a country that exists should exist. We should be talking about the sovereignty and the statehood of the Palestinians, recognized by over 75% of the UN members and internationally, and Israel is refusing to allow the Palestinians a state. Israel does exist. And if Israel existed as a democracy, as they claim that they are, where they gave Palestinians equal rights, equal representation, and were treated the same as Israeli citizens, then there would be no issue in coexistence. But Israel has made it very clear there is no two states, there will be no two states. And one of the colleagues that I spoke with on this show 3 days ago, he said, from the river to the sea, the land will all be for Israel and a Jewish homeland. So when we talk about genocidal intent, It's very clear that Israel does not want Palestinians living anywhere near them, and they want to take all of the Palestinian land and make it their own. And if Israel continues like that, their demise will come from themselves, not from anybody else.
Brigadier General, your thoughts?
Well, Nizar is trying to conceal the truth about what he thinks, but he is accepting the fact that Israel exists, but he doesn't say that Israel should exist. And that's
it does exist.
We don't need the Palestinian acquiescence in order to exist. We exist. But if we are going to have peace, the first prerequisite for that is for the Palestinians to accept that Israel should exist as the state of the Jewish people, and with equal rights to the Palestinians and the Arabs living inside Israel. That's the case today. We have 20% of our population are Arabs. They have full rights like everybody else. And that's the situation in Israel. There's a question about what's going to be the fate of the territories that Israel took in 1967. I don't know who was the partner that Nizar had last time, that 3 days ago, as he mentioned. But the Israeli formal position is that we are looking for an arrangement that would now allow the Palestinians to rule over themselves in a way that would not endanger Israel's security. That's what we're looking for. Unfortunately, as long as Hamas is there, we don't feel that this is the partner that can guarantee our security. And definitely, when we listen to what they are doing and the way they plan the future, is a future without Israel, obviously. And we cannot live next to Hamas.
What about the West Bank? What about the West Bank, where there is no Hamas? Hamas have no stronghold, have no control in the West Bank. Jenin, Ramallah, Tul Karam are being bombed systematically on a daily basis by Israel. And you use Hamas as the excuse.
Excuse me.
Let the Brigadier General answer your question.
Excuse me, but what we are watching from the West Bank is that the Palestinian Authority is not fighting against terror the way it should have fought. Nevertheless, they have self-rule. And they rule over the people, over most of the people, with the exception maybe of 5 to 10% that live on Area C. They rule over all of the population, and they don't use it in order to make sure that there is not going to be any terror. As a matter of fact, we just witnessed yesterday night an attempt, probably from areas under the Palestinian Authority control, to carry out a very ominous attack against Israelis with 5 bombs planted in Israeli buses. Just fortunately, there was a mistake in activating the bombs, and they went out too early. So this is what we're experiencing there. Therefore, since the Palestinian Authority doesn't do what it has to do in fighting terrorism, we have to go ourselves into Jenin, Tulkarem, all these places that you mentioned, in order to make sure that we should not be facing huge waves of terror attacks inside our cities.
We're going to leave it there, Brigadier General. A lot to get through. We know that we're entering the second phase of the ceasefire deal. Before we do leave it there, though, you mentioned off the top a complete end to the war. That is ultimately the goal that's been stated with respect to this latest ceasefire. Do you see that as a strong possibility, sir?
Well, it's difficult to say because the Palestinians, the Hamas is insisting that the end of the war would be such that it will maintain control over Gaza. And this is something that we cannot accept. So I don't know how we are going to square this circle and make it possible to reach an end of the war anytime soon. I'm very hopeful that we shall be able to have the American involvement in promoting such an arrangement that would see Hamas leaving Gaza and enabling the Palestinians there to have better lives and to see an end of this war.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. We did unfortunately have some technical issues with Nizar Dahan. So Nizar, thank you for your contribution to this interview. Brigadier General Yossi Kuperwasser, thank you, sir, for your comments as well. Appreciate your time today. I'm Anita Sharma. Folks, thank you so much for watching Headlines on A News, and we'll see you real soon.